What's going on, guys? Happy Victory Friday. I don't know the last time we were able to say that. It feels like it's weird. I'm so confused when we play on Thursday. It's always so weird thinking, I'm here live on Friday. It's usually Monday. Very confusing times. But what a great Victory Friday to have. This is kind of like what I say, I think, every single week. But definitely was not expecting the complete blowout that they had against the Falcons last night. The Falcons have beaten some pretty good teams, so very confusing. But I am so happy that we came out with a big win, as Ron94 says, just as I said it as well. And the defense is playing absolutely out of their mind, which is so fun to watch. We all enjoyed the year of the boogeymen. And I'm glad that they haven't chosen a nickname because, as I've said on here before, I don't want to relive the 2019 season as far as the nicknames go because we know how that season ended. I just feel like it's kind of like bad juju. We don't want that. And we're playing. They're playing good as it is right now. They don't need a nickname for it. Just leave it as it is. So this game was a little bit different. Usually I go drive by drive, and I still kind of have it like that because it's just easier to talk about, and I feel like easier to talk about things that happened and when they happened. But I'm not going to go over every single drive. We know, obviously, the Falcons did not score any points. So unless something like a sack or something happened, I'm not going to talk about it in super detail because we don't really care about those drives that end in a punt. You know what I'm saying? So I have lots of good info. So let's just jump straight into it. Thank you guys for watching live with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, whatever you can do to help a girl out. I appreciate it. So before the game, very interesting. I did not even know this. So this is why I wanted to mention it in case you guys did not see it either. This was Matthew Slater's 200th career game, which I thought was insane. And, he's one of my favorite Patriots players of all time. So that was really cool to see that. And then shortly before the game, we did hear that Cordero Patterson was going to remain out and Calvin Ridley was not playing either, which basically left everything up to Mike Davis and Kyle Pitts. That's basically, no disrespect to the other players, but that's the Falcons offense right there without, Cordero Patterson, who I was really looking forward to watching play because I really liked him during his time on the Patriots, but, he was out. For the Patriots, though, Gunner and Damian Harris were back, which was super exciting. They both kind of had quiet nights, especially Damian Harris, but I'm good with it. They finally have like 10 days off. This is a rough year when they don't have a bye until week 14. So the fact that they're able to play a week 10 game and get like on Thursday and get 10 days off, I think they're definitely going to benefit from that. So this I thought was super interesting. I want to talk about the Patriots team before getting into all of the drives and whatnot. So over the course of the 4-win streak before they won this 5th one, the Patriots offensive line had the 4th highest rushing outputs, and their sacks decreased in the last 4 games. Sorry, that was the offense. Yes, the offensive line. Defense had 21.2 points allowed in the beginning of the year when they were 2-4, and only 12.5 during their win streak, which is humongous. That just shows you how far this defense has come from the beginning of the year. And they're finally gelling. We like to use that word. They're finally gelling. And I just think there's a lot of good players on the defense. We give a lot of credit to, Judon, especially JC Jackson, both very well deserved. But we cannot forget about Barmore. We can't forget about Adrian Phillips, who's had quite a few good games. Jalen Mills has had some good moments. I know a lot of people don't particularly like him, but even Hightower was having a fantastic night last night. Kyle Van Noy had such a great night that the NFL decided they needed to drug test him today. So, it's not just the defense is not only falling on the shoulders of people like Judon and JC Jackson. It's a collective effort, which is really awesome. Over those 4 games, they also had won the turnover battle, and only once when they were 2-4, which was a huge issue at the beginning of the year, especially with the running backs who apparently had butterfingers almost every single week. They're not turning the ball over, knock on wood, I'm knocking on wood, really at all. There was an interception last night, which was just kind of like a fluky thing. It was a bad read, bad choice by Mac. Even he said that after the game. So nothing that I would be too concerned about. But as far as fumbles, thank goodness that has stopped. Hopefully it will continue to be that way because that was a little bit out of hand. The special teams penalties are down. That was a thing at the beginning of the year as well. They had 6 special team penalties when they were 1-3, and only 3 penalties on special teams over the last 6 games. Penalties are still kind of an issue with them. They were averaging 6 for 53.2 yards in the first 6 games. It's now down to 51.5 yards on 5.5 flags in the last 4 or 5 games. So nothing fantastic, pretty average. It's a lot better than a lot of other teams. If you've watched any Bucks games, then you will know that the Bucks are, it's rough. I mean, even the Falcons got quite a few flags last night. I totally forgot to look it up, but yeah, that is, I mean, at least it's going down, but definitely not as much as they need to. And let's get into the drive-by drives. So, the Falcons won the toss and they chose to defer, which always makes me a little bit nervous. I'm a little nervous anytime anyway, but when the Patriots start with the ball, it's just a little nerve-wracking. I feel like, I don't know. I guess it's nerve-wracking no matter what side of the ball is playing. So I don't know why. I just have to say I'm nervous. I'm nervous all the time. So of course the first drive ended in a punt. There was a good pass to Hunter Henry on 3rd and 4, which was called defensive pass interference, giving them a first down. And then N'Keal Harry made himself known quite early, which that is something that I spoke about on the 4th and Goal podcast before the game started yesterday. I had mentioned that I wanted to see N'Keal Harry be involved more in the passing game. As we saw last week, he was more involved in blocking, which people didn't really realize, I don't think, and they weren't really giving him that much praise for it, but he did a really good job considering that's not his position. And it's great that they can use him in that capacity as well. I said that if they aren't going to use him a lot in the passing game, then they might as well use him in some sort of way that's beneficial to the team. And I was hoping that they were going to use him a bit more, which they did. So it was kind of nice to see that happen early on. His first pass, too, was only his 9th reception on the season, which is crazy. I know that he started off the season injured, so that obviously impacts that for sure. But he saw some more receptions in this game, which is nice. And it wasn't just from Brian Hoyer, who apparently really likes to throw the ball to N'Keal. So good to see that going with him and Mac. Bolden was stopped on 3rd and 4, which resulted in a punt. The Falcons took over on their first drive, which is, of course, a punt because that was their entire game, basically. Really great Jake Bailey performance last night. Not that he ever really has bad performances, but definitely a great one from him last night. This punt was down inside of the Atlanta 4-yard line. And Judon and Hightower are making themselves known again quite early in this game. They were definitely all in, not just them. This is just on this drive, all in on the runs, stopping the runs, which was really good to see with Hightower. We know that he's been kind of quiet and not like the best this season. He's definitely had his moments where, it was typical Hightower that you like to see. But he was getting started early, and so was Judon, which continued the entire night. So the defense, like I said, was just on fire last night. Thank goodness. So they did stop a run early. There was a penalty again on Atlanta for illegal formation, which pushed them back to 2nd and 12. And this was interesting too. In the first few plays, Kyle Pitts was not on the field, which I was a little bit shocked about. Obviously that changed. He had a few receptions in this game, but I was a little bit shocked just because with who they had out, Kyle Pitts was somebody that you thought they were going to rely heavily on in the passing game, particularly. And to see him not on the field on their first drive was a little bit weird. But he did end up coming in. I don't know why they held him out. Maybe it was just, play calling that happens, obviously. But he's been such a huge playmaker for them this season. That was kind of weird that they didn't start off with him. But he did come in, and his first pass was broken up by Kyle Duggar, which then forced a punt on 4th and 9. Kyle Duggar is another name you want to make sure you're paying attention to. He is a guy that I can't stop talking about. I love the guy. Fantastic night for him as well. I forgot to mention him at the beginning of the show, but he was all over the place during the entire game, just everywhere, from sideline to sideline. So another guy who played a complete game, a complete 60 minutes. And it's really exciting because he's a young player. It's only his second year. So for people who say that Belichick can't draft or, can't pick up undrafted guys or anything, that's a guy that you can say Belichick got right. So the Patriots go for their second drive. It ends up in a field goal. Thank goodness they have Nick Folk, who clearly is the MVP. I say that like every week, but it's just fun to say Nick Folk is the MVP because he is the most consistent scorer on the team. The punt was short. They took it to Atlanta's 46. Jonnu Smith for 17 yards. Stevenson for 21 yards. There was an incomplete pass once again to Hunter Henry on 3rd and 7, which forced a 32-yard field goal, bringing it to New England 3, Atlanta 0. Falcons take over once again. Jake Bailey showing out with a 65-yard punt. That was his favorite number apparently for punts last night. He did quite a few. I think there was a handful maybe of 65-yard punts or more. Crazy good night for him. Another penalty on Atlanta for offensive holding, which brought them back. Gotcha and Judon once again. We had a lot of Gotcha last night as well. Another name that I should have mentioned at the top, but he was doing really well again last night as well. Him and Judon stopped Gallman on 2nd and 4, resulting in -3 yards, which is all that Gallman got. Actually, he ended with -3 yards. So I don't know if this was the play where they just finally just said, we're not going with him again. But that would be super early for them to just decide that they didn't want to continue with him, but it appears that may have been the case. Duggar, again, all over the field, especially on this drive as well. And let's see. There's a deep pass to Sharp on 3rd and 9, which was broken up by Devin McCourty. So Devin McCourty had quite an evening as well, guys. We love that too, as Ron 94 is already talking about Devin. We'll get back to that in just a second. So the Patriots' third drive, finally, they get a touchdown. It was a pass to N'Keal Harry for 9 yards, then back-to-back big runs from Damien Harris for 14 and 17. And on that 17-yard run, he broke multiple tackles, which was crazy. It's kind of like one of those moments when you're watching it where it kind of looks like you're playing Madden. It was one of those moments for me. And another penalty on Atlanta for defensive holding, and then a big pass to Aguilar for 19 yards and a touchdown, making it 10-0 New England. Falcons take over on a third drive, results in a missed field goal. I feel like that's just like the epitome of the Falcons, right? Like this was just a very fortunate sequence. Another 65-yard punt for Bailey. Gotcha was bringing the pressure on this drive as well. Matt Ryan was sacked by Kyle Van Noy for -4 yards. Then once again, just 9 plays later by Kyle Van Noy for -13 yards, which forced a 4th and 14. And this is probably why Kyle Van Noy got drug tested this morning. So, maybe it's because of the back-to-back sacks by him. I don't really know, but he did have a quote where he said now he knows, I think it was on the Pat McAfee podcast, where he said he now knows what it feels like to be Myles Garrett, because Myles Garrett was always posting when he would have a good game. The NFL, NFLPA, whoever would let him know that he needed to have a drug test. So welcome back to the Patriots, Kyle Van Noy. So the Falcons did go for a 45-yard field goal, which was good, but then they got another penalty for an illegal formation, making it 4th and 19 in a 50-yard field goal, and it was far left. So the football gods were on the Patriots side once again, allowing the Patriots to take over. After the turnover on downs, the Patriots, of course, resulted in another drive that ended in a punt. Mac Jones was sacked on the first play for negative 14 yards. A very quick 3-and-out, nothing too exciting on this. A punt on 4th and 6. So the Falcons take over for their 4th drive, which once again resulted in a punt. Duggar, again, was making some crazy plays in this game. He had a good tackle at the line of scrimmage for no gain on 2nd and 9. Matt Judon got a big sack on Matt Ryan for minus 9 yards, who he walked through a hold or possibly a hands to the face penalty to get that sack. Of course, the penalty was not called because apparently the referees do not believe in calling anything like that in favor of Matt Judon, but he got it done, got that sack, which then hits his career high of 10.5 sacks, and there's still 6 games left. He's tied for 3rd in the NFL for sacks. Myles Garrett has 13. TJ Watt has 12.5. They're the only 2 that have more. He's the first Patriots player to record double-digit sacks since Chandler Jones in 2015, and we all know how most Patriots fans feel about Chandler Jones, and how I feel about Chandler Jones. And the most sacks in the season during the Bill Belichick era in the Patriots would be Chandler Jones in 2015 with 12.5, Mike Vrabel also in 2007 with 12.5, Chandler Jones in 2013 with 11.5, and Judon has 10.5 in 2021, and there are still 6 games to go. So hopefully maybe he could be the new record setter. I mean, 10.5 to 12.5 is not that bad. He's been on a streak of getting sacks in the last couple of games. I think he went 2 games without getting a sack. And then it was back a week, or I think it was last game or the week before. So definitely attainable for him based on how the defense is playing right now. He could certainly break that in just the next few games, which are definitely going to be tough ones. We play the Titans next, but they will be down Julio Jones, I believe, and Derrick Henry. So that is a game that you might want to pay attention to this weekend just to see, what the Patriots are going up against in week 11. And the most sacks by Patriots players through the first 11 games of the season since 1982. Don't ask me why it's 1982. I don't know. That's just the stat that I found. But number 1 is Andre Tippett in 1985 with 12. He also had it in 87 with 11. And Matt Judon is 3rd, 10.5 in 2021, who I guess he's tied. Yeah, he's tied with Chandler Jones in 2013 and 2015. He had 10.5 in the first 11 games as well. So certainly good company. Can definitely add to that even more, as I said, which is so exciting. Matt Judon was a player that I was very excited about when they signed him. I think people were excited, but a little bit under the radar. And he's definitely, he's on pace to have his best season of his career. So the fact that the Patriots got him on the deal that they did is just phenomenal. Bill Belichick worked his magic once again, and found a great guy who seems to have acclimated to the Patriots and the Patriot way very quickly. And he's become a fan favorite and media favorite too. I see a lot of the media talk about how enjoyable he is to speak to and interview. So he just seems like a really fun guy. Really exciting that he is on the Patriots. So getting back into the Patriots' 5th drive right before halftime, which ended in a field goal. On the punt return, there was an illegal block in the back by Justin Bethel. So that pushed him back to the 32-yard line. Bolden was doing what he does, copying a little bit of Damian Harris or Stevenson, I'm sorry, from earlier, breaking out of several tackles, pushing to get 9 yards, which would have resulted in, I think if he hadn't, it would have been like 4 yards. I think he pushed for probably like 5 extra yards, pushing through those tackles. Myers got a big gain of 18, and then Mack was sacked for the second time on 2nd and 4 for -7 yards. It looked like it was like a miscommunication with the guys on the line. It looked like he blew past Trent Brown, which is a little weird, but Brown wasn't where it didn't look like he was where he was supposed to be. I mean, there's no way that anyone can really push past Trent Brown. The man's a giant. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but this drive was kind of weird anyway. They decided to run the clock down from 21 seconds to 5 on 4th and 1, and instead of trying to take that time to go for it and then use a timeout, their last timeout, they decided to wind the clock and kick a 44-yard field goal instead, which isn't I would say it's probably not the most favorable choice by a lot of people that were watching, but I mean, they got points out of it, I guess. So they did get the 44-yard field goal, 13-0. Patriots. It did look like Mack was visibly frustrated before halftime. I don't know if that was with himself. Maybe it was with running the clock. I don't know, but you could definitely tell he's got a little bit of that Brady attitude in him. So, it is what it is. They did go in and get the points before halftime. It was the 5th consecutive game that Mack had a scoring drive in the final 27 seconds of the first half. So this is much different than when they decided to take knees in the last, 90 seconds before halftime earlier this year. Definitely shows you that they're having more trust in Mack and believing that he can lead the team down to score when they need to. He went 14 for 15 with 136 yards and a touchdown in the first half. The Pats defense had 3 sacks, 8 pressures, and 3 run stops in the first half as well. So offensively and defensively, great game in the first half. I think that a lot of what people were talking about was definitely the defense, which I understand. But, Mack had a pretty good first half as well. So we need to credit him, hence the title and the background today. So after halftime, the Falcons had the ball first, which of course resulted in a punt and resulted in another 65-yard punt from Jake Bailey, because like I said, that was his favorite number apparently. It was down at the Atlanta 1-yard line, returned for 16 yards, and then there was a penalty for a false start on 2nd and 15. There was a pass that was intended for Sharp over Mills, which then was called defensive pass interference, which I didn't really like that call. I felt like it could have gone either way. I mean, or not called at all. It was just one of those unfortunate situations for Mills. Nothing egregious, I would say, but definitely hurt the Patriots a little bit. It was a 19-yard gain for Atlanta. Then they followed that up with another false start. And Hightower made another stop on the run for no gain. And then him and Bentley stopped Mike Davis for a gain of 10 yards, which was on 3rd and 15, and then another block. So the Patriots take over and they decide they want to do a punt too. Since I said at the beginning of the show, if you did not, or if you watched the game, but if you didn't watch the game, there was a lot of punts despite the score, which you would assume that there wasn't, but there were for both teams. This was a weird spot too. On the punt return, Gunner ran into somebody of his own on the Patriots as well. And at first I didn't know who it was and I totally forgot. I didn't see the number, but someone said it was Winovich. So welcome back, Winovich, because he was just activated from IR and Josh Uche was put on IR. So I don't know what was going on there, but he almost got completely stopped because of running into Winovich. we had Henry getting involved in the run game when he got a gain of 13 yards. And then there was a penalty on Jonnu Smith for offensive holding. So that negated that, making it a 2nd and 15. Then it was kind of a weird pass to Jakobi Meyers. At first, it kind of looked like it wasn't a good throw. It looked like it was kind of sideways or just out of reach for Meyers. But then if you watched it a little bit closer, it appeared that Meyers actually fell before the pass could be caught. So that ended that drive, resulting in another punt. At that point, they were 1 for 6 on 3rd down. Definitely not ideal, especially with how the defense was playing and keeping the Falcons off the field. The offense was having a bit of a struggle to take advantage of their time on the field. And the fact that the Falcons defense isn't the best. So, those penalties, especially that big defensive pass interference, and then on Mills, and then that call on Jonnu definitely hurt them and kind of helped end that drive for both of them. And on that drive, it was only Mac's 3rd incompletion of the game. Since the first quarter, since there was 5 minutes left in the first quarter. So again, he was having a fantastic night. Just not necessarily the type of performance that he would probably be excited about. I mean, if you looked at his numbers at the end of the game, nothing too thrilling, but we know how accurate he can be. So, that was crazy for him. Another great high completion percentage game for Mac. The Falcons take over for their 2nd drive, resulting in a punt. It was the 3rd punt by Bailey that ended inside the 20. Nothing too important to talk about on this drive. It's just a millionth punt for this game, but Hightower and Barmore, they kept bringing the pressure, stopped a bunch of plays. And at this point, since halftime, there were 10 plays in the second half and had 4 flags already. So I don't know if the refs were just flag happy or if both teams were being a little bit careless, but definitely not a fun sequence of drives to watch when they keep being stopped because of flags. Sorry, guys, my throat can be kind of weird having to talk to yourself so much. So anyway, the Patriots take over for their 2nd drive. Stevenson started out with a good run of 13 yards. And this was pretty cool, too. There was just a giant hole in the middle of the line. And I don't know who missed their block or who left this guy wide open. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. But a Falcons defender had absolutely nothing in his way. He was charging down straight at Mac, and Mac did not panic whatsoever. He actually had he saw the guy coming right towards him, had a really great throw to Jakobi Meyers for a 1st down. Then their next good play on this drive was to Hunter Henry for 15 on 3rd and 4. There was a deep pass thrown that was meant for Jonnu Smith. And this is where Mac Jones was intercepted in this game. I think that this is a fair opportunity to criticize Mac for this, because I think that this wasn't necessarily a panic throw, but I think that he was trying to do too much. He threw deep and into double coverage, and I think he was just trying to pick up a ton of yardage at that point, probably frustrated with how the game was going because they were only able to score 1 touchdown at that point. So I think that he was kind of trying to force something to happen, and that is when these types of plays happen. So the Falcons, they got a big help here, I guess, from Mac. It was returned for 35 yards, and ironically, it was stopped by Jakob and Mac, which looked a little bit scary. It looked like Jakob might have gotten hurt a little bit, but I think he continued in the game, so I think that's okay. I think he's back. But not the best decision, but thankfully it wasn't necessarily like an accuracy issue. It was just a bad choice. Also, I want to say hi to David, hi to D22 Williams, and hi to Jeff. Since I didn't answer you guys, and there's not a lot of people in the chat. So, hi guys, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Let's get into the Falcons. They take over for the interception. again, nothing exciting. More pressure from Hightower and Phillips, stopping runs. They do go for this play on fourth down, but Adrian Phillips and Carl Davis are able to stop for no gain. So there's a turnover on downs. Carl Davis actually did a crazy thing too. He pushed the center back, I think about 2 yards. And Phillips was able to make sure the running back was not able to get a first down. So really good play. The Patriots take over on downs, like I said. Nothing exciting on this. They also end up punting. And this is where the game starts to get a little bit more interesting. I think, we were excited because as Patriots fans, you're excited that the team is winning and they're winning by a decent amount at this point. But the game is not out of reach yet. And this thing started to get a little spicy. So that was exciting. Very exciting end to this game. I think especially for people who are not fans of either team and they just watch football, this was definitely a way to end the game to make it a little bit more interesting, because I would say for the most part, people would probably think this was a boring game if you were not a fan of either team. So the next Falcons drive ended. This is where the interceptions of the night start. So first I need to talk about the Matthew Slater possible penalty, because we've talked about this a couple weeks ago. We even mentioned about Julian Edelman saying that you can't penalize Matthew Slater. And this was another moment where Matthew Slater he was flagged for running into the returner. But thankfully the referees decided to have a meeting. They came to their senses and realized that you cannot call penalties on Matthew Slater. That prior in the season, when they did call a penalty on him, it was a giant mistake. No, but really they did take the flag back because they realized that the returner had a late fair catch call. And you can see that when Slater sees the fair catch, he does try to avoid hitting him. So I was glad that they called that back, because that would have been a huge upset. So Matt Ryan was sacked by Gotcha on the first play for -7 yards, which was the 4th sack of the game and the 11th quarterback hit of the game. So Ryan was getting banged up in this game. At one point, I think he had like a bloody elbow. He was seen on the bench, very frustrated. I don't blame him. I mean, his offensive line wasn't doing anything to protect him all game long. Definitely can sympathize, because the Patriots had the same issue at the beginning of the year. We know their offensive line had a lot of work to do in protecting Mac, because the same issues were happening to him. So apologies to Matt Ryan, but it is what it is. The Patriots got to you. This is when I said, gotcha. It's a good tweet. At least I thought so. Then let's see. Then there was a big gain of 19 on the next play, but then Barmore stopped the run for -1 yards, and a deep pass that was intended for Kyle Pitts, the only guy on offense that could basically do anything, was intercepted by Devin McCourty at the New England 22 for no gain. And this is when Raw 94 gets in before I could even say it. He hit a milestone. It was his 30th pick. So he's in the company with Ty Law, which is really cool. So he moves into 3rd all-time in Patriots history with his 30th career interception. To tie the franchise record, he needs 6 more, which, as Raw 94 said, is held by Ty Law and Raymond Claiborne. So shout out to you, Devin McCourty. Finally, we got it. He tweeted about it and said that it was dedicated to J-Mac, because he just got put on IR, I want to say. I don't remember if it's season ending, but I really enjoyed J-Mac's time on the Patriots too. So shout out to you, J-Mac. We love you. We miss you. So the Patriots take over after the interception, which results in a field goal. Definitely not what they want, but points are points. We'll take anything at this point. There's deep pass that was incomplete to Myers, which then was helped by a defensive pass interference call on Atlanta, which helped them gain 20 yards. Kind of like a questionable play. I don't know that it was necessarily defensive pass interference, but they called it, and the Patriots benefited from it, so I'm not going to argue with it. There was a big run by Stevenson for 28 yards, which was then taken back by a penalty on David Andrews for a holding, which... how many times do we hear penalties on David Andrews? That doesn't happen very often either. It seems like when he does get penalties like this, it's always at moments like this where it's like, why on such a good play did you have to have that happen? It's not just something where nothing happened and he gets it. So that was unfortunate. Then on 1st and 20, Kendrick Bourne had a great pass for 19 yards. And then a few plays later is when Mack was sacked again for negative 12 yards, which looked like it was Isaiah Wynn that was beaten on that. Obviously, we know that he has had some issues in that point. This season particularly, I think a lot of people would probably say not just this season, but in general. Isaiah Wynn's been pretty okay this year, I would say, for the most part, but this was certainly not a good moment. So, this was a 53-yard field goal, which was the longest of the season for Nick Folk. And, of course, he made the kick. And this I thought was really interesting. This was from Zach Cox of Nesson. He said, when the Patriots played on Thursday Night Football in 2017, they beat the Bucs 19-14 after Nick Folk, who was the kicker for the Bucs at the time, missed 3 field goals. He didn't kick in the NFL for 2 full years after that game. Nick Folk is 25 for 27 on field goals with only misses from 54 and 56 this season. So I think, or maybe in general. Yeah, no, this season, I was right. That is a crazy turn of events. I remember when they signed him, I think most people didn't even realize he was still playing. I didn't even think I knew that he was out for 2 years, but thanks Nick Folk. It's like we needed a kicker so bad, and they find him and a very reliable, consistent kicker, consistently like the best kicker in fantasy football, especially if you play fantasy, then you probably wish you had Nick Folk. I think he got like 16 or 18 points in fantasy last night. Patriots defense, I think, got 26 points last night. So Nick Folk, we love you. Just hopefully they can find a kicker that can take over for Folk, since he is 37, 38. He's not going to be around for a whole lot longer. So after the field goal, the Falcons take over, and this is where another interception happens. So the third play of the drive, the pass is intercepted once again by Mr. Interception himself, J.C. Jackson, which was so funny on Twitter last night. I think I scrolled my timeline for a bit, and I just saw so many people saying Mr. INT, Mr. INT. It was like 20 tweets in a row of people just all saying the same thing. That's a great nickname for him, and he lived up to it once again last night. That was his 6th interception of the season already. Like I said, 6 games left to go. So he passes Hall of Famer Mike Haynes for the most interceptions through a player's first 4 seasons in Patriots history. That was his 23rd interception of his career, which is absolutely insane. I'm so happy that JC Jackson is having such a great year. I've said on this multiple times that I was a little bit skeptical coming into this year, knowing that they were going to be starting without Stephon Gilmore, and now we know for sure that they don't have Gilmore anymore. So JC Jackson is holding his own, and you almost kind of, no disrespect to Gilmore, because I love Gilmore and I wish he was still on the team, but you kind of are not really like yearning for Gilmore to be there because he's doing such a great job. Raw94 says, vote for JC to get to the Pro Bowl as well. Yes, make sure you go and do that. I think that a few of them had tweeted it out. The Patriots might have tweeted out the link for it. Don't forget to vote for Judon as well, because he's absolutely killing it in this year as well. And the Patriots kind of get snubbed in the Pro Bowl. Like, I mean, the Pro Bowl for the most part is fan voted, so it's not at all shocking that the Patriots kind of get snubbed. But there are players that deserve to be there, and JC Jackson is one of them. They're not really talking about him the way that they've been talking about Diggs and how great of a defensive performance he's been having this season. But JC Jackson's right up there. Matt Judon is right up there. And yeah, they deserve your vote. So go and do that. I need to do that myself actually as well. So I'm right there with you. I think you can vote as much as you want to. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can. There's no limit on votes, which is pretty cool too. Let's see. Okay, yes. So the Patriots get a field goal after the JC Jackson interception. They started at their own 49, get to 4th and 1 on Atlanta 16, got a 33-yard field goal. Then the Falcons take over for their 6th drive. Josh Rosen comes in, and on 3rd and 5, he throws a pick 6 to Kyle Van Noy, which was returned for a touchdown. So it was 25-0 at this point. Just I guess Kyle Van Noy adding to his reason for drug testing. At this point it just became laughable. I mean, it was like 3 drives in a row that just kept ending in an interception. It ends up being 4. And after this play, the defense hadn't allowed a point in 19 consecutive possessions. And over the last 26 possessions at that point, the Patriots defense had scored 13 and only allowed 7. So, I mean, I feel like this is the consistency of what people wanted to believe that the Boogeymen were in 2019, but they weren't. And they've been playing some much better, more competitive teams, much better offenses, and they have been holding it down. So then the Falcons, since that ended in a touchdown for the Patriots, then they take over for their 7th drive, and this time they put in Felipe Franks, who I guess is their 3rd string. And his first pass that was intended for Gage was then intercepted by Adrian Phillips at Atlanta's 23 for no gain. So the Patriots take over, they take knees, and they win the game 25-0. It was their 16th shutout for Bill Belichick and the 13th with the Patriots. And they went 5-0 on the road, which is only the 6th time in Patriots history for them to do that. This whole thing was so weird. Because there's a lot of 28-3 jokes yesterday, and then there was the lunar eclipse that was 3 hours and 28 minutes long, and then the Patriots won by 25, which was how many points they were down in Super Bowl 51. So a lot of weird Super Bowl 51 stuff yesterday, but kind of cool. I feel like that joke will never go away. So Bill Belichick also has 318 wins. He's only 6 behind George Halas at 324 for 2nd all time. And there's 6 games left of the season. I don't know if the Patriots are going to be able to get 6 more wins. They would have to go 6-0 for the rest of the year, but that would be pretty cool. I would assume that Belichick's going to get to that point. If not this year, then he will next year. So pretty cool. Bill Belichick ranking up there with some of the greats. I think we already consider him probably the greatest coach of all time, but this just kind of helps solidify it. You can't really argue with how many wins. And if the Patriots win their next 2 games, then this is such a crazy stat, guys. If the Patriots win their next 2 games, the Belichick will be the head coach of half of the total regular and postseason wins in Patriots history, which 387 games, 280 wins. The rest is 613 games and 282 wins. That is insane. So he's at 281. Because I think that was before the game started, so that would be 281. Absolutely insane. And Ron 94, I write this stuff down. He is asking if I write this if I have a good memory. I wish that I had a memory like that. I wish I had a Bill Belichick like, or a Sean McVay type of memory, but I don't. I have to write this stuff down. I type it up on my computer, but I also take notes during the game. Oh my gosh, my light is so bright. I have to figure this out. But here's some of my notes. It's like 4 pages of notes. If anyone's curious, I sit and I watch Patriots games and I take notes. And then I type it all up on my computer. Makes it a lot easier to talk about it all. So there are some of my secrets. Let's get into the stats of the game. Mac Jones was 22 of 26, 207 yards, touchdown and interception. He's now 5-0 on the road. And he joins Dak Prescott and Ben Roethlisberger as the only rookies in NFL history to win each of their first career road games. And over the last 5 weeks, he ranks in the top 10 for completion percentage, yards per attempt, touchdowns, and passer rating. Some people maybe don't care about some of those stats, but I think considering that he is a rookie, and the fourth or fifth quarterback taken in the draft this year, I think that we need to stress how well he is doing and not downplay it, because people are really downplaying it. Particularly because of being on the Patriots. People want to downplay it because they think he got put into the best situation and that's why he's doing so well. But to an extent, that's going to be true, obviously. But a lot of the time, college players, it doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL. And I think that if you were just a casual watcher of the NFL and you saw Mac Jones, I don't know that he screams rookie whatsoever. And I think that's pretty cool and really important to emphasize, because a lot of the other rookie quarterbacks that are playing this year, they definitely stand out as rookies. Rushing in this game, Stevenson had 12 carries, 69 yards. Harris had 10 for 56. They totaled 30 carries for 134 yards. Receiving was another all over the place game. There were 9 different players that caught passes, and Stevenson and Harris, as I just said, they kind of split rushing yards, which I think we're going to see probably a lot more of. I know that they were favoring Damian Harris. Clearly, the running back one, obviously, but after coming back from a concussion, I'm sure that they were kind of trying to take a little bit of a break with him, because he did miss last week's game. And then they just added, we just found out that he was playing, I think, I don't know if it was was it yesterday? Yeah, I think it was yesterday that they just announced that he was playing. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of this. We're also seeing a lot better production from Stevenson since they put him in the doghouse after his fumble. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that split. And I think that Damian Harris kind of deserves that as well, because he was carrying so much of the load of the running backs, and it kind of risks the injury a bit more. So the fact that they can lean on Stevenson and not really see a huge difference there is exciting. As far as receiving yards go, nothing exciting really here. Kendrick Bourne was 4 of 4 for 42 yards. Aguilar 5 of 5 for 40 and a touchdown. Myers was 4 of 6 for 39, and Hunter Henry was 2 of 3 for 25. Total, they were 22 of 26, 207 yards and a touchdown. The offensive line did not do as great as they have been the last handful of weeks, but not too bad. Trent Brown was credited with a sack, and Isaiah Wynn was credited with one as well, which you can kind of argue, but I would say that I would agree that it was a sack. Andrews got a hold, and the defense, once again, absolutely killing it. They had 4 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss, 6 pass breakups, 12 quarterback hits, 4 interceptions, and a touchdown. That seems like a season of a defense, or at least like a handful of games on a defense, not just one game. That's crazy. Their coverage stats, J.C. Jackson was 1 of 3 for 7 yards and an interception. Jalen Mills was 0 of 1 and a DPI. Miles Bryant didn't have the greatest game. He allowed 4 of 4 for 53. Kyle Duggar was 2 of 4 for 21 yards and a pass breakup. McCourty pass breakup and an interception. Van Noy an interception and a touchdown. And Phillips was 0 of 1 and an interception. So crazy defense, guys. I think Bill Belichick is probably loving it. I think Troy Aikman said during the broadcast, he thinks that Belichick really loves this team. And maybe he thinks that this team is really special this year, but speaking specifically about this year. And I feel like it's probably true just how the defense is playing. Obviously, he's a defensive minded coach, so he's going to be probably a little bit more biased towards the defense, but who can blame him? The defense is really exciting. Will says he's throwing a lot more comfortable in the pocket, landing the ball in safe places for the receivers. Yes. And D22 Williams says he had an 84.6% completion. Super accurate. Like I said, I think that it's fair to criticize the interception just because I think he was trying to do too much too early, because he also did that on first down. So I would have to rewatch it, but people were saying there were some other options that he had to throw at that point. He didn't have to force it to Jonnu, but he did. So, it's just like he's going to make mistakes like that. He is a rookie. And of course, I'm sure there was some sort of frustration there because of how the game was going. They weren't able to get in the end zone. So thank goodness for the defense. And, Mac is playing better than not good. So I think that is something we need to praise. Ron94 says this was a shutout win, but I still think it was sloppy on offense on the offensive side, maybe because of the short week. Yeah, I think some of that is going to be credited to the short week. Defensively, it was basically flawless. Offense, I think it's just, it's a short week. I think that the Falcons defense was playing a little bit better than maybe they anticipated, a little bit better than I anticipated as well. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just game planning or I don't know. I feel like I would have to watch the game and see if I can try and figure it out. But no, I agree. I mean, it's an exciting win. It was a blowout win. Like you said, that's always fun. But no, definitely not the most impressive offensively. And I think that's a fair critique. I don't think that Belichick was like too thrilled with it either. After the game. I mean, he didn't say anything negative necessarily, but when the defense plays the way that it did, I think it's kind of hard to look at any of the negatives on the other side. Unfortunately, they have 10 days off now, so I think that's very needed for them, especially because they don't have a bye for 4 more weeks. I think they have a bye in the last possible week available for byes. So let's see. So some of these, some random facts and stats, guys, that I thought were interesting. So the defense only missed one tackle over 52 snaps last night. Do you know how absolutely insane that is? They only missed one tackle all night long on 52 snaps. Over the last 4 games, the Patriots defense has pressured the opposing quarterbacks on 48.5% of their dropbacks. Matt Ryan was under pressure for 19 of 32 of his dropbacks last night. So, like I mentioned a lot during the recap, a lot of pressure from everybody on the defense, basically. I mean, you can't really point it out to just Judon. It was Judon and Barmore and Hightower and Gotcha and Adrian Phillips. It was everywhere. Kyle Duggar. The Patriots also only allowed 165 yards in the game and 3.2 yards per play. And since they played the Cowboys, they've held 4 out of 5 of their opponents to under 300 yards and 4 out of 5 to under 14 points. At that point, the Cowboys, of course, were super hot. They were hot again last week, but 2 weeks ago, they looked miserable. But even then, they played pretty well on both sides of the ball. It was just unfortunate in overtime. The defense has allowed 0, 7, and 6 points in the last 3 games. And this was the first time in 21 years since the year 2000 in Miami where 3 different quarterbacks came in for a team and all 3 quarterbacks were picked off by the defense. So another crazy record that they broke last night. I didn't even know that that's even happened before. I thought it was kind of crazy to think that there was ever a time where 3 different quarterbacks came in for one team, but you learn something new every day. And as far as the Patriots during their 5-game win streak, they've given up an average of 10 points per game, which I just talked about too. 103 total quarterback pressures, 12 interceptions, and 3 defensive touchdowns. And they've outscored their opponents 175 to 50. That is crazy. What a complete turnaround in only 5 games. I think that we kind of were all talking about we needed this to happen because the Patriots have been playing well for the most of this season, but it took a little bit for them to click and get it right. And the defense are doing exactly what I think most of us thought that they were capable of doing and we're hoping that they were going to do this year with all of the additions that they had in free agency and in the draft. They're playing exactly how you kind of dreamt that the team was going to play. And that is so fun to see. It is so exciting to have another defense that is nearly unstoppable. And I'm knocking on wood again because you know how superstitious I am. So hopefully that will continue for the next 6 games. Jeff says, Sarah, what team do you see being a trap game for the Patriots? Ooh. I think I'm most concerned out of the remaining games, probably the Bills, because they have to play them twice still, and it's only 2 weeks apart. And I think the Jags are a sneaky team as well. I think that their record is not. They're a team that their record doesn't really indicate how they're playing. I mean, they just beat the Bills a couple weeks ago, 6-9, which is absolutely crazy. So, the Bills at that point were the hottest team in the league other than the Cowboys, and they were able to be held to 0 touchdowns and only 2 field goals for an entirety of a game. So I believe that they play the Jags in week 18. So that one concerns me. And I think the Bills probably, I'm almost like more nervous to play the Bills at Gillette because the Patriots have been having such a tough time at home this year. I think that makes me a little bit more nervous than playing on the road. What are the chances of that happening, guys? Let's see. Will says, I just don't see us losing to the Titans, knock on wood. Yeah, I saw a lot of people were pretty confident going against the Titans after what we've seen over the last couple weeks, but the Titans are they're kind of sneaky good right now. I think that the Patriots are definitely getting an upper hand there with Derrick Henry being out and Julio Jones, but Julio Jones hasn't really been doing a whole lot since he signed with them. So that one I feel like is just kind of like whatever. AJ Brown though is a phenomenal player, and everyone's going to be tweeting out that he could have been a Patriot. So prepare for that all week long next week. But I am hopeful. I'm glad that they have these 10 days to prepare for a team like the Titans. I think that they definitely need that break and then to prepare. And that's going to be a big game, especially as far as the AFC goes. So if the Patriots are able to beat them, first of all, it'd be great because it's a home game. And second, it definitely helps them as far as the AFC goes. So fingers crossed on that. And then we also have to pay attention to the Bills this weekend, guys, because we are only 1 game behind them right now. The Patriots are at 7-4 and they're at 6-3. So definitely pay attention to that game this weekend to see what they do. And especially because the Bills are kind of like inconsistent. Raw94 says they're overrated. I mean, I don't know if they're overrated. They still do have Josh Allen. They have Stephon Diggs. So they definitely have the players that they need in order to be great. It's just been a little inconsistent the last handful of weeks. And you also say Mike Vrabel came from Bill Belichick tree. So yeah, no, I know. That's the thing too, is we have to remember that Vrabel can have Belichick's number. He knows exactly probably what Belichick is going to do, and is more understanding of the Belichick mind than most other head coaches because he played for Belichick for so many years. So, I'm not going into the Titans thinking that there's no possibility of them losing. I don't do that anyway. I mean, I expected the Jets game, this last Jets game, to be more competitive, and then they ended up blowing them out like 50-something points. So that's just the type of mind that I have. But I'm definitely not feeling super confident going against the Titans, but I think that they have a pretty good chance. And I think the rest of the year is going to be exciting. There's some really important games coming up, but the Patriots are, kicking ass and taking names, as they say right now. And I think that's really exciting as a fan. And it's really fun to be able to talk about the team with you guys. So I appreciate you guys joining the stream today. I won't be back until maybe I'll do like a midweek catch up type of thing next week, because otherwise I'm going to be gone for a while. maybe I can do something next week where we can talk about preparing for the Titans game, just so you can see my face once again next week. But thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share. Help a girl out, try to get, more subscribers on this channel, more people in to chat with me. Still trying to figure all that out. Trying to figure out this lighting too. But anyway, thank you guys. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, a nice, relaxing Sunday of knowing the Patriots have already won. And I will see you guys next week. Go Pats.